Good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Anderson. It's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to this first part of the second session. If I get too much into that, I'll muddle myself up. But it's morning, and we're going again, and I'm going to chair this opening period. If I might, I'll just say just a word about Brian first, and the fact that I was here before him. I've been a member of Newcastle University since 1965, which is an appalling thought. Not on the staff, but it does mean that I was here when Brian came to join us in 1969, and I remember the awe with which we thought of someone arriving who'd written a book in computing science. Brian's got it as a prop for later. So we knew that this Randell had been a co-author with Lawford Russell of that famous volume, and we just thought this was fantastic. I mean, we had half the computing books that existed in the world in our library, and they occupied all of about 3 meters. So I don't think we had Brian's. got it on the cheap after he arrived. And that sense of awe, well, when you get to know someone, that always diminishes. But what does grow, I think, is respect. And I would say that my respect, and that of many others for Brian, has grown monotonically during the period of knowing him. But I will concede that I have sometimes hidden that. Anyway, Brian, I join with everyone else in my praise and adulation and pleasure in this event. So, now to work. Chairing. In systems, as in chairing, it's good to identify structure, especially when it's hidden structure. So if we look at the morning, and I've looked at it very closely, we have 3 talks by Brian A. Wichmann, pay attention, David B. Lumé, and Martin sort of C. Kelly. And I think that's what's going on here. Compliments to the organisers for seeing that. So this is the A session with Brian. Now, as I said, pay attention. We're going to return to this. We've heard some splendid quotes and aphorisms indicating the erudition of our contributors. I really wanted to join in, but I read much more accessible material than them. So this is from Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings, a book I've only read because Peter Henderson lent me his dog-eared paperback, so thanks to Peter for that. Elrond said, at the Council of Elrond, "My memory reaches back even to the elder days." And that's what we needed, we thought, and this is our man. His memory reaches back to the days before Brian came to Newcastle, even, astonishing though that may seem. So, even before 1969. So, Brian is one such, very well known. Now I'm introducing our speaker instead of rabbiting on. Brian, well known, particularly well known for the unique work in compiler validation and comprehensive work in compiler validation that he's done and built up and contributed. But if you ever think of a niche like that, you can't put someone in it. And there's a whole raft of other work in the areas of standards and language development and languages for critical systems and their relevance and formal methods and all of that sort of stuff. Numerical methods, did I mention that? So a whole host of other stuff, and that's why, of course, his name is so well known. It's perhaps less well known that he was the editor of Voting Matters, the journal of voting, until very recently. So if anybody's got any problems with the alternative vote system and want to know what's wrong with any voting system, I suspect the chat to Brian would help you out on that. That's relevant to British politics at the moment. Anyway, I thought that quote was a bit weak. So I'll use one of Brian's, which he pinched, Brian Wichmann, which he pinched from someone else, Galbraith. It fits with some of the earlier material, so I liked it a lot. So this is a quote that Brian has used by Galbraith. "The advantage of being correct is that you do not need to change your mind." That does seem a winner. Brian and I met a long time ago That's about as close as we can manage. Because between us and with a bit of joint effort, we have comprehensively failed to determine when it was. We agree it was a long time ago, but neither of us can think when it was. Now, this is an illustration of a common failure of two diverse systems. I promise you, pretty diverse. But if you look underneath, when there's a common cause, you can seek what the basis of it is. Now, I know what you're thinking. But it is not, in this case, aging, because we are still sprightly and raring to go. Well, one of us is anyway. I'm just bluffing it. But you'd be wrong if you thought it was aging. I want to stress that in this case, it's genetic. I want to introduce to you Brian Anderson Wichmann.